Thank you again, everyone, for joining today during your busy back to school season. We are really excited to have you join our panel discussion, More Money, Less Problems, Strategies for School-Wide Currency. I know 30 minutes goes by really quick, so overview of today's session. We'll do some quick intros so you know who is in the room sharing their experiences. Then we'll dive into the panel discussion. We'll chat with our experts on how they have implemented school-wide currency systems. And then we'll open it up to Q&A from you all. So as we are going through this panel, please feel free to share any questions you have in the chat. I also see some familiar faces in the room who I know have tons of experience with school currencies as well. So feel free to share any strategies, any advice you have as well. My goal for today's session is for you to be able to walk away with actionable strategies to easily and effectively implement a school-wide currency system at your school. Quick intro on me. I am Abby. I'm one of the co-founders of ClassBank. I'm a former middle school math teacher. ClassBank is a digital school-wide currency platform designed to simplify the implementation of school currencies, making positive reinforcement easier for teachers and more engaging for students. Not only is our goal to drive those positive student behaviors and outcomes, but also really prepare students with financial literacy and money management skills as they get their first bank account and learn to earn, save, and spend school dollars effectively. Today, we are joined by three incredible educators, Justin DeVos, Alice Lejean, and Austin Owens, ranging from K-12, and they have tons of experience and expertise in implementing a school-wide currency system. So we will be hearing from them today. Panelists, in 30 seconds or less, if you could please introduce yourself, share your name, your school, and a little bit about your position and role.
So I'll go first. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Justin DeVos. I'm the Director of Financial Education at Legends Charter School. So I am responsible for essentially helping to close the wealth gap for Black and Brown kids in Legends as a part of Prince George's County, Maryland School District. Nice to meet everyone.
Hello, greetings from the great state, the Booth, Louisiana. My name is Alice Lejean. I am from the Evangeline Parish School District, and my responsibility is the principal. So I get to do a little bit of everything. We basically use this system on my side for data tracking. We track three big ticket items: behavior, attendance, and grades or growth. And we are absolutely loving this system. Welcome, everyone.
The space bar at work. Hello from the decent state of Ohio. We're getting better. We're working on it. My name is Austin Owens. I am a business teacher at Independence High School in Columbus, Ohio. I'm also a PBIS coordinator, and we have seen such remarkable feedback and growth from using ClassBank from students that you wouldn't necessarily think would respond to it, but I'm telling you, these kids love it. They love it. They appreciate it. And they will find you and tell you, hey, you didn't pay me for this thing. So, and it's because you get so much opportunities for engagement. So we love it. It's working perfectly for us.
Awesome. Thank you for the brief introductions. Now everyone knows who they are chatting with. Would love to just dive into the panel questions. So panelists, my first question for you is, why did your school decide to implement a school-wide currency system in the first place? What challenges were you hoping to solve?
So I'll jump into that because we were using a system previous to that, but the behavior issues we were having were becoming pretty widespread, and there didn't seem to be a carrot and stick that we could use consistently until we started using a class-based economy, based upon students allowing to buy themselves, snacks or whatever the case may be, or but the efficacy of the program is a complete ratio of how well your staff is able to understand it. And this program is so easy to understand. It's intuitive. It's intuitive for the students too. And they will check their class bank accounts more than they check their grades when it's done with Fidelity. And it is a complete transformation. I've had students with ankle monitors and rap sheets who will sit quietly in a classroom for 48 minutes because of ClassBank. I mean, it really is a transformation in our building, and we can't wait to get started again.
Yeah, and to pick up from what Mr. Owens has already stated, we were looking for a PBIS system that had a component of financial education, right? Which is one of our core pillars here at Legends Charter School. And formerly, we were with Stash 101, and then that turned into Class Equity, and which turned into Class Bank. And I said, okay, you know, it's pretty self-explanatory. And the kids being in the digital age were able to figure it out more quickly than the actual teachers and instructors in the building, right? So they were giving like professional development sessions on how to use Class Bank, and we actually charged them to write up a set of policies and procedures that fits Legends Charter School and how to again implement Class Bank with fidelity and integrity. One of the things that really stood out for us was not only did we see a turnaround in behavior, but we saw exponential growth in personal finance management. Now, kids were really understanding what it was to budget, what it was to come to class on time and be responsible for a particular role that you had in your class, and actually how to earn money. One of the other things that we added to Class Bank was that at the end of the school year for our middle school students, whoever had the highest bonuses or the most currency, we actually awarded them a scholarship to open up an investment account to begin investing in the stock market. So it was, just incentive based, but also again, just building that school wide community, which really helped for us.
Speaking from the middle school, and I'll echo what some of the guys just said. I'm a founding principal, and so that we're only in our second year of operation. And one of the things that was important to us was that we wanted to come up with something that was not full of tangible, nasty paper that they pull out their book stack that get all over campus. So we wanted something that was user friendly. We have something called teaming time every morning, which is an SEL component where we a 10-to-1 ratio, adult to student, and they have the ability to sign into their class bank every morning. They see their payments, which are teachers. We kind of do a real life scale where they on probation, they get paid daily for their behavior, their attendance, their grades or growth by the hour, just like an hourly rate of pay. And then after a 2-week probation, we start dumping into weekly deposits. And financial literacy has been a focal point in the state of Louisiana, so much so that it's passed legislation to become a component for graduation. So as a scaffold and a building block, we are introducing them to things like debit and credit. And it's pretty phenomenal. It just in our first couple of months of implementation, I had an 11-year-old chasing me down the hall saying, Miss Lojan, I need a loan. And I'm like, what's a loan, dude? And he had to tell me why he needed that loan. And so I then turned around and threw some math on him. I said, okay, I need you to figure out how many days you need before this next event and how much potential earnings, and deduct that from what you have and tell me how much you need to borrow. And so just having that lingo, we live in a low socioeconomic status parish. We're 100% free and reduced lunch. We don't have, we have a lot of cashless system. We don't have a lot of investments or any conversations that take place. So this was an idea for us to not only teach the students how to have that math fluency component of adding, because you have to add your deposits before you can make any transactions. It kept them on top of it. It keeps them organized and it keeps them in tune with their potential earnings. Because what we do is we take that money and they have the ability to spend it daily on the fun stuff. And in middle school, it's easy because, they all some Fortniters. I don't know if anybody has some middle school or personal children, the V-Bucks. So we call ours the e-bucks. And they're able to make a real life connection and know what that virtual money can do for them in the game of school and not just in the game of Fortnite. So we just basically wanted something paperless and friendly, and this system definitely provides that.
Thank you for the background, kind of setting the stage of why you wanted to adopt school-wide currency. Would love to get into some of the logistics of how you actually implemented it. If you could share with us, how can students earn money? What are those different behaviors that you might be looking for? What are the different opportunities to earn and spend?
All right, I guess I'll go first. We'll go backwards design here, guys. So again, like I mentioned, we have 3 big components. I call it our bag data: behavior, attendance, and grades or growth. And so just like an hourly rate of pay, our students, we had to come up, the biggest challenge was we had to come up with a fair market value basically for that performance. And so we kind of took like a minimum wage concept and said, okay, we have this many transitions. If you can do $7.25 an hour for behavior, $7.25 for attendance, and then the grades and growth are more sporadic, they're not as consistent, that they have control of that 6 different transactions potentially in a day. We chose that because the school was founded our children were coming from a historically F school, and truancy was out the box for attendance. The suspension rates were increasing. So we know we needed to focus on those big three items. So what we did is we took these three components, we pay them for that as incentive, but they also get to turn around because we offer our core math, English, science, and social studies, but we also offer 5 different, what we call zones, or some schools call them houses, where students, as part of their curriculum, in the subjects of art, communication, gaming, forming, and culinary, they have the ability to, they have to come up with business plans. We have boards of directors that are elected, and they have to go on 4 mandatory excursions. And they have to fund these excursions through Class Bank. And so we establish a price value. And this year we're super excited with that savings component that we implemented, because now they are learning to take a little bit each week and kind of tuck it away so that they can afford the excursions, which are off-campus learning opportunities as part of their research. Because at the end of the year, we do a major expo and everything that we create in these zones. And part of that process is doing 4 research-based trips outside of school, and they have to be able to fund that. So it's kind of our major component, other than we don't do recess traditionally here either. Every day students have an opportunity to purchase recess rooms. So we set, again, prices. Instead of going with the general population, if they don't want to be outside, they don't want to be in a classroom with some of their kids, each zone determines what they're going to do for recess, and the kids can buy into that recess room. So just an example, in gaming, it's not just playing video games, it's game design. They do a lot of mathematics, probability, things of that nature. But for recess rooms, you will find them playing like the Mario Kart or the virtual reality headsets. In forming, I think they made pancakes today. It's kind of like farm to table. Culinary, we're doing some flavored popcorn. In art, around Mother's Day, we did things for our moms. Communications, they do podcasts and TikToks and whatever. So it is a fun component that they kind of get that brain break at school as well, in addition to the curriculum and the traditional recess. So we use that on a daily.
Thank you for sharing, Alice.
Yeah, I would say, for us, similar to what Principal LaJane has said, was we follow what we call our ABCs, our academics, behavior, and culture. And we have 900 kids in our school. So we really charge our middle school students to be advocates of our culture. And one of the things that we oftentimes have done is, giving them the freedom to build community throughout the school, whether it be through, mentorship, volunteerism, or just, finding what we call a Legends buddy, right? So you would, partner up with a lower class student and kind of be that guide of, sense of direction for that child. And then we would reward them with what we call Legends bucks, in terms of class bank currency. One of the things that has stood out was, as we were, awarding our children Legends bucks, they were then figuring out, well, I have this surplus of dollars that I want to be able to use. So they would oftentimes spend their dollars, but they would say, okay, what do I do with these savings? So what we started to do was track how much the kids were saving, and then we opened up what we call like a virtual, investment simulation, and we're able to match what they were saving to then be invested into a virtual stock market platform. So, Abby and I have had this conversation many a times to say, okay, let's add the investing component to it, because I think that would be a game changer, just an added benefit. But it's just been so helpful for our students, because they have just bought in, not only from the financial education standpoint, but from the behavioral standpoint. And it has changed the culture of our school dramatically. And I can't thank Abby and her team enough, because it's done such a wonderful job, especially when you have, the staff and the administration, but also the system and the process that works specifically for your school. I mean, there are going to be times where you have to tweak, but they're, available to answer any questions or concerns that you have, to help guide you along that process. So that way, at the end of the day, your classroom economy is yours, right? You can mold it and shape it into anything that you want and desire, and, be firm and sure that it's going to be done with fidelity and integrity. So, wonderful job that Abby and her team has done.
Well, wonderful job that you have done with the implementation. It's so great to see that emphasis on financial literacy and savings as well. I love that matching idea. I'm going to definitely have to share that with all of the other schools we work with. Last but not least, also tell us a little bit, how do you have your school currency system set up? What can students earn for? What can they spend their money on?
Absolutely. So it's funny that you guys are saying this because I'm a panelist, but I'm learning so much from Justin and Alice. I'm trying to take notes over here because you guys have such great ideas. But initially, I was the first person to use it was again Stash 101 and then Class Equity and Class Bank in the classroom. I teach business, and so I teach my students that nothing is free. So I even to the point where I would charge them rent for the classroom quarter, and they would have to make that based upon their behavior in the classroom. But we tie the incentives and the bonuses to our PBS initiatives, integrity, intelligence, involvement. We want them to demonstrate that, and that could be their integrity. Could be, did you push in your chair after the end of the bell? I mean, were you cleaning up the hallway? Did you clean the classroom? Their intelligence. Did they participate in the classroom? Those simple things that we want to get engagement from our students. What happens if a student can't make rent? Well, you know what happens if you don't make rent. So the rent policy it's virtually impossible to not make rent, but it's designed to be a component of business. You have to be engaged in the business process. If you're going to be a part of the company, you need to be engaged. So we play games to allow them to pay rent. I have other opportunities for them to pay rent. I've had a couple of students not pay rent, but those are students who don't come to school. And that's what we're trying to alleviate. We're trying to get them to want to be in the building by making it fun. So if they can't pay rent, I have a conversation with them and say, hey, buddy, what can we do to get you to get caught up on this? So typically they make rent and it is more of an incentive to participate in the classroom. And the rent amount depends. Typically, it depends on the day and the time and the environment of the classroom. I'll get into more of that if need be. And Ms. Woodson, I can send you my email address if you want to talk offline as well. I'd love to do that. So we got started with a school-wide system, and we created a school-wide currency and a school-wide economy based upon the input of the teachers and our student council. So that was important because we wanted to make sure we had an equitable rate of return on what they were putting into it based upon their behavior and what they expected to get out of it. And that helped. That helped a lot. Getting that student input helped tremendously. When I was just doing it independently as a teacher, every Monday we have our Monday meeting, which is our staff meeting for the room. And I would ask them, what do you like about the class? What don't you like about the class? And I said, Mr. Owens, these prices are too high. And I would tell them, it's only expensive if you can't afford it. And so they're trying to imbibe these inherent financial literacy tropes to them so that they can understand how to save their money and how to use their money wisely. Um, that part, the feedback from students applies so well to them wanting to do it because I think as Justin was saying, they were giving PDs to us as staff members on what should be the best way to use this program.
You guys have already shared tons of tips throughout your answers here, but as our kind of quick wrap-up question on my end before opening it up to the crowd, tell us, what tips do you have for other schools that are hoping to implement a school-wide currency system?
I'll go quickly. Ask your students. Your students are going to be your best source of feedback. Your students are they're the end goal. They're the user. They're the customer. So you need to make sure that they have what they want to make sure that they are going to be engaged in it. So ask your students, and then the rest will fall into place.
I'm going to echo that. Yes, it's very student driven. Somebody asked the question, how do you get, let me go back to, I think it's like, how do you get the teachers or something? I think teachers need to remember that we're all in the business for students. And I know for ours, it's a non-negotiable. We make it as easy as possible as far as creating trackers to assist them. But I promise you, when they don't participate because the kids will tell, and you can see it in the deposits. And so that's just another conversation that you have to have. Like, look, this is our PBIS or MTSS, whatever you want to call it. This is part of the program. So it's a job expectation. And so I think getting feedback from both students and from teachers are essential. My only advice would be to be extremely consistent. Make sure you have something that they can return on their investment and something that they want. Because if you lose, or if they lose interest or buy-in, then your program becomes in jeopardy.
Yeah, I definitely echo that. We do offer incentives for our teachers. We do expect them to participate and deploy the program, but we also want to create a sense of community and culture around financial education and getting teachers acclimated to the daily management of finances and business operations is essential. So one of the things that we may do is offer, perhaps a stipend or performance-based incentive, or even, when it goes to like professional development, we'll offer a certification program if you're taking classes, related to financial literacy and financial education. So there are some ways that we kind of, help teachers, be a little bit more engaged. But once they do get engaged, they feel like they don't even want to, take the incentive because now they're fully invested in what the kids are doing, and it's a classroom, thing.
And thank you for sharing these tips. One other question I have for you all is, what impact have you seen on your staff, on your students, on your school culture, financial literacy after implementing your school-wide currency system?
For us, as far as impact, it's kind of a reality check on some, like thinking, oh, I need to tighten up because I missed out on something and I want to be a part of that. I want to do better. And so I have some that panic, like I told you, like, hey, I didn't get the right opportunity. I made, a mistake. It's a coachable moment. Can you help me? It's pretty cool to see the light bulbs go off. And then like one of the fellows said earlier, at the end, they were bragging about how much they can save. And so then we took it to the next level. Like we went and we gave them the opportunity to buy big ticket items and deliver it to school. So it just depends on, and the kids drive that. The kid, hey, what do y'all want to see? That we're in this business for y'all. It's kind of a customer satisfaction, right? What do you want to see? And let me work for you.
Yeah, and to echo her point, we believe in the voice of the customer, right? So the customer is the students, and we oftentimes deploy surveys to get their feedback to see, what needs to be tweaked, what's working, what doesn't work. Because at the end of the day, they're a part of this program as much as the administrators who have rolled it out, right? So if we're not doing our job to make sure that the students are fully engaged and that they're getting the highest quality services possible, from a classroom economy and PBIS standpoint, then we're failing them in that sense. So we keep our students constantly in the loop, to make sure, again, that we're making improvements every single day with ClassBank.
Yeah, and finally, I tell my students every day, you can't hurt my feelings. I'm married and I know I'm fat, so you got to give me the truth at all times. So, because if you don't advocate for yourself, how am I going to know? If you don't tell your boss you need a raise, you're not going to get that raise. So we really press the integrity part of being able to speak truth to power, so they have that confidence when they go into the workplace to be able to do that. And Class Banks allows them to do that, because sometimes I will, specifically not pay a student just to see if they will have the courage to speak up, and they do. And it is money's based. It is fear of missing out. But it's also, you get the positive return on that when you see a student who maybe wasn't the best student in the world. And we do tie a lot to academics as well. And then they start seeing their classmates getting paid for participating. And then next thing you know, they're raising their hand to read. It's like, oh, James. Oh, yeah, man, right. And you get that feedback, and it's like, oh my God, you get to see a student who has that carrot, who has the understanding that if I do good, I get good. And you spread that around an entire building, and of course the culture is going to change for the positive, because everybody wants to be in on it. No one wants to miss out on it. And then you have high schoolers who like to flash money, and it's like, what, I would have to put it on the board, who has the most money in the classroom, and they look at the quiet kid in the corner like, Carlos has 20. Like, how did he get that? And it's like, well, because Carlos does his work. So, and then that breeds that positive competition that you always want to see in a classroom, where students want to, who wants to read this paragraph, and 10 hands shoot up, and it's like, oh, okay, well, I guess it's going to be here. So yeah, it is transformational in a very positive way, in a meaningful way, and in a way that students can understand in our current society, where we have a consumerism issue. But we'll talk about that on tomorrow in the first day class.
That will be our next panel discussion.
That's the next one.
Well, thank you for sharing all of the positive impact your school currency systems have had. I'm going to pass it over to Lauren to go through the questions that have come up in the chat. If audience members, if you have any other questions, feel free to share your thoughts in the chat, and we'll make sure to get to them in the next few minutes.
All right. So the first question is, what stock market simulation do you use?
So I personally use Investopedia. They have a great stock market simulator, which is pretty easy to use. And the good thing about that is that it has the news built right in, right? So the news is constantly updating. So that way we can have discussions around what's happening in the market as it happens, and then have kids be able to research and make informed based decisions before purchasing an investment.
Great. And I see you linked the website in the chat. So thank you
Mm-hmm.
so much. All right. Are trackers online, paper, or both? Do teachers have a choice?
For our tracking purposes, we kind of give an option because there's still some people who love that paper product and they walk around and track on a clipboard, old school style, and then they'll go back and do their deposits later. We also have one that we built into Google Sheet, where we created some drop down menus where it's a quick click, like yes, they were here, you know, behavior, attendance, whatever, and we kind of color code it so when we look at it, we can also identify trend data.
And we I don't know if you've heard about these things, but they're called cell phones, and our students like to use them every now and again. And during lunch, typically is when they'll take a look at their, they'll pull up Class Equity or Class Bank on their phone and see, and they'll know. And they were trying to figure out a way to transfer money to individuals and everything like that. So we typically keep it digital. It's just easier for teachers who are we're typically in front of a laptop anyway, between doing attendance or delivering a lesson. So we like to keep it digital so they can have a tab open. But there are some teachers who do like to print out paper so they can give that tangible thing, just like Miss Lejeune said. So it is it's a little bit of both. And the beauty of it is that it can be whatever you need it to be, as long as it fits that student and that teacher's needs, and it works with ease.
Great. Have you ever had the students be in charge of a class instead of a teacher?
I think I would need a little more elaboration on that.
So I've had
Um,
students who have been able to take charge. And if I'm delivering a lesson, I'll have my student teacher helper for the day. They'll come up and say if someone's participating, they'll pay them at that point, or if someone's on their cell phone, they'll apply that fine. So you can have a student do it. You just have to trust but verify, is what I would say, just to make sure, because they do have their favorites. And if you give a mouse a cookie, they're going to take a mile. You can combine those two, if you want to. But as long as you do it with fidelity and you trust but verify and check, and that's the beauty of it. You can see all the transactions that were given, so you can go back and get rid of. I'm not giving James $1,000 for reading. That's not what it's for. We give 150, so that way you can make sure your economy doesn't get destroyed by doing that.
Mm-hmm. And another question: how can I learn how to teach teachers to effectively infuse this into their respective curricula? Am I overthinking this?
I'll just say it as a teacher here. It depends. You can use it as both classroom management or financial literacy, or both. Classroom management is something every single classroom is going to need. And as a classroom management tool, it's virtually peerless. There's so many stories I could tell about it. From a financial literacy standpoint, I think Ms. Lejeune said this as well. Like it's almost a state law everywhere that you need to teach students how to manage their finances. So there's math, science, English, social studies. There's not all of those relate to somehow managing your money. So we do have some teachers who are a little reticent, who don't like to use the technology or whatever the case may be. But at the end of the day, it becomes the positive peer pressure of the students. Like, how come you're not paying us to do this? That allow other teachers to get on board, even if it's at a very elementary, basic level, because they're just not comfortable with it. But to involve it into their curriculum, it depends on what they teach and how they teach. But it can always be involved in the classroom as a classroom management system.
I think one of the areas that we addressed was, we saw that some teachers, talking about like generational experiences and trauma, they weren't comfortable in terms of managing their own personal finances. So when you're kind of rolling out a classroom economy for 30, 50, 100 kids, it's like, okay, what do I need to do? Because I'm not sure in my own, abilities to do this. So we would have those kind of one-on-one sessions with teachers who are a little bit hesitant, and then being able to kind of build their confidence up where not only do they feel comfortable with kind of managing their own personal finances, but also being able to, manage a system for an entire class. Because again, we felt that it was essential to have, Class Bank be a part and integral in everything that we do here at Legends, right? Just running through the building, running through the veins of the school. So if we had a teacher who really wasn't, kind of on board, then we would take the time to essentially bring that teacher on board in whatever way that was most comfortable for them.
Great.
Thank you. I will see if Alice has anything she wants to add on, any tips for engaging your staff members, and then we will wrap up after that.
Well, I guess I'm sitting here kind of puzzled because it's kind of part of their job description to participate in classroom management. And,
Mm-hmm.
I think we dribbled crumbs, if you will. We didn't take it to the fees, fine jobs. We broke it into digestible pieces. So for the first 9 weeks, we didn't do fines. We didn't add jobs. We just got in the habit of paying when, how much, and started that cycle, if you will. And then midway through, we kind of started trickling in jobs like announcements, or somebody wants to go clean the bus to make some extra money or whatever. And we allowed that. We kind of test drove it a little bit. So we just took it very slow because there's no reason for them not to participate in the PBIS system. So I just find that as part of their job. And if they don't want to do it, then that's a different conversation as to why. What is the fear? What is the trouble? Let me support you.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great approach. Thank you all again so much for sharing all of your expertise and wisdom. Again, that 30 minutes went by super fast. So we're going to go ahead and wrap it up on that note. Everyone that is in the audience will hang out for a few more minutes in case y'all have any questions and you want to hang around and ask them. But if you do have a quick minute, please take our exit ticket. This way we can continue to improve how we support you all and your school community. But thank you all so much again for joining today. This was a lot of fun.